Welcome back, you guys. Today I'm sharing my favorite pizza. It's pretty easy to put together, and I'm gonna show you how to make pizza dough in your food processor. Now, with that being said, you can absolutely make this in your regular stand mixer. You can make this in a regular bowl by hand, but this is my favorite way to make pizza dough. So let's jump in and I'll show you. For today's recipe, we're going to use a handful of ingredients, most of which you probably have in your pantry. So for the pizza dough, we're going to start with all-purpose flour, extra virgin olive oil, sugar, active dry yeast, kosher salt, and that is it for the dough. For the topping, we're going to use some beautiful fresh on-the-vine tomatoes, a little bit of garlic salt, some extra virgin olive oil. You can use a spray or you can use just regular extra virgin olive oil, a balsamic glaze, cracked black pepper, fresh mozzarella, and of course, fresh basil. Now, this ingredient right here, the balsamic glaze, is what makes this pizza. And if you have not tried this, you definitely need to give it a try. It is down the regular aisle of your grocery store with the balsamic vinegars and the extra virgin olive oils tucked in there somewhere. So let's get started with the pizza dough first. We're going to be using some warm water. Mine was just about 110 degrees. And we're going to add our sugar. Now, like I mentioned before, all of the ingredients and all of the amounts will be listed below in the description box. So you just want to give your sugar a good swirl with a spoon, mix it up so that the sugar dissolves, and then you're going to add your yeast, and I like to add my olive oil at this point too. Now, you want your yeast to start to foam up, so you're going to let this sit for about 3 minutes or so. So when you first put it in, it looks a bit granular, and then once time passes, this is what it should look like. This means that it is live yeast. It's good to use for dough. It will make your dough rise and be beautifully soft and fluffy. So give this a little stir, and then we are ready to combine everything. And like I said, we're going to use a food processor. So this is my food processor. You can also make this in a stand mixer or just a regular bowl with a spoon. You just want to use your regular blade. And this is the fastest, easiest way to make pizza dough in my opinion. So you just want to add all of your flour to the bowl of your food processor. We're going to add our kosher salt, and I like to combine these two just by pulsing it a few times. Next, we're going to add our liquid ingredients, and at this point you just pour it in. That is it. This is the simplest pizza dough, and the food processor does all the work for you. So you pour all of that in, make sure you scrape out all the bits of the yeast, and then we're gonna pulse this until it forms a dough. As your dough comes together, you're going to start to see it form crumbs, and that is a good sign. That means you're on the road to pizza dough. So once it forms a ball of dough, you want to let the machine go for about 20 to 30 seconds. So instead of getting our hands dirty and kneading this for several minutes, our machine is doing all the work for us. And you will know when your dough is ready because it will come together and it looks exactly like this. So now it is just a waiting game. We're going to get a big bowl. I'm going to spray this with some extra virgin olive oil. You can also just drizzle a little bit of olive oil just in the bottom. That works just as well. And this is just so our dough won't stick. We're going to transfer the dough. Just be careful of your blade. That blade is pretty sharp. So this part isn't necessary, but I like to form it into a smoother ball of dough. And then you just put it in your greased bowl, and it is a waiting game. I do recommend coating it in olive oil just a little bit. This will help prevent a skin from forming as it rises. You want to cover it with a clean kitchen towel and tuck it in a quiet, warm place in your kitchen and wait 1 hour. After an hour, it should have doubled in size, and you have pizza dough ready to go. So on a clean counter or a cutting board, place a little bit of flour, turn out your dough, and then it is time to make pizzas. I like to knead my pizza dough just a little bit, give it a little bit of love just to make sure that it is ready to go. Form it into a smooth ball, use that flour to make sure it doesn't stick, and then it's time to divide it up. On this particular day, I was making 2 regular size pizzas, but it's also a perfect dough to split into quarters, and you can make 4 smaller pizzas. So if you have kids, this is what we do a lot. We'll give each child their own ball of dough, let them make their own pizza, let them go wild. This particular recipe for pizza dough is really easy to work with. It's very forgiving. I'm just working it with my hands and making sure it stays slightly floured, and I'm just working it into a pizza shape. One of the best parts about homemade pizza is that you can make it as thin or as thick as you want. So for this particular pizza, I let it stay pretty thick. My husband is not a fan of thin crust pizza, so this recipe is perfect for fluffy, thick pizza dough. So I like to use a pizza stone, but you can use whatever pan you have on hand. Give it a couple quick stretches and make sure your oven is preheated to 425. Now, because I am making a Caprese pizza, which does not have a sauce, this is a very fresh, very simple pizza. I like to drizzle a little bit of extra virgin olive oil and add a little bit of garlic salt. I like to pre-bake my crust so that I don't overcook my tomatoes. So I'm going to add a little bit of flavor to the crust with olive oil and a little bit of garlic salt. And before you pop your crust in the oven, you want to take just a regular fork and add a few holes right in the center of the pizza so that the dough won't create bubbles while it bakes. So you're going to bake this at 425 for about 7 to 8 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to prepare some of our toppings. So Caprese Pizza has ripe tomatoes, fresh basil, and sometimes it has balsamic, sometimes it doesn't. I love using a balsamic glaze. So you want to just slice up your tomatoes, make sure they're nice and ripe. I also prepared my basil and unwrapped my mozzarella. I like to buy the mozzarella pearls. It's just a personal preference. You can use whatever fresh mozzarella you can find. As for the basil, I love fresh basil. You want to take it off the stems, and then I'm sure you've seen this a million times, but I like to stack my basil up, and then I roll it like a little cigar, and then you just slice it into very thin strips, and this is called a chiffonade. This just looks really pretty. It creates these beautiful ribbons of basil, and it's my favorite way to cut it. You can also just tear the basil over the top, and that is just fine too. So we have our tomatoes, our mozzarella, and our basil ready to go. The pizza will come out and it's going to be very underdone, so don't be worried. It's very white, there's very little browning on it, and that is exactly what we're looking for. You're going to add your mozzarella first, and if you have the slices of mozzarella, that works just as well. You just want to space them out a little bit because it will melt. And then you just nestle your tomato slices right around the pizza. And then this goes back in the oven at 425 for about 10 minutes. So when it comes out, it has some slight browning around the edge. The dough is cooked all the way through. I like to add a generous amount of cracked fresh black pepper. Then it's time for the magic ingredient, that balsamic glaze. This adds such a rich sweetness, and a little goes a long way. You want to sprinkle on your basil, and you can do a little or you can do a lot. Like I said, I love basil. And then this is just an added ingredient. This is my favorite sea salt. This is from a local place near us, and it is roasted garlic sea salt. It is absolutely delicious. So I like to add a sprinkle of that. And look how beautiful this pizza turned out. It is bright, it is fresh, it is perfect for summer, and I hope you guys will give this one a try. Look how good that looks. My kids like this pizza too, although they go for cheese every time. So we usually split up the dough and we'll do an adult pizza and then we'll do a cheese pizza. So let's give this pizza a taste. So look at that dough, or crust I should say. It's super pillowy, it's soft, it is light. The tomatoes are barely cooked, so they're super refreshing. The basil's so good with the balsamic and that fresh mozzarella. So good. This is like summer on a pizza. So I hope you guys will give this one a try. If you do, let me know. And if you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of my future videos. Hope you guys have a beautiful weekend.